money might someday stop mattering. When we talk about money becoming obsolete, maybe we're asking the wrong question entirely. We have a difficult time imagining the end of money. It feels like imagining the end of oxygen. How can we interact? How can we value things? We hear arguments that money will just change skin, that we will trade in kilowatt hours or social credit points or data packets, and perhaps for a fleeting transition period that is true. But I think if you look far enough ahead, the smart bet is always the bet against permanence. Think about the year 1894. In London there was a genuine panic. It was called the Great Horse Manure Crisis. The Times predicted that in 50 years every street in London would be buried under 9 feet of manure. Why? Because they couldn't imagine a city without horses. If you asked a man on the street then, how will we move about without horses? He would look at you as if you were insane. What do you mean? He'd say. Will we just float? If you bet on the manure piling up, you lost. If you bet on the horse staying central to transport, you lost. The car didn't just replace the horse, it deleted the entire ecosystem of stables, blacksmiths, and feed. What do you mean we won't need sailing ships? How will we cross oceans? What do you mean we won't need farmers? Where will food come from? What do you mean we won't need swords and spears? How will armies fight? Most people living in those eras would have bet on things staying the same, and they would have been wrong every single time. There's a name for this tendency in psychology. It's called the status quo bias, first identified by William Samuelson and Richard Zeckhauser in 1988. In their experiments, they gave participants identical choices, but framed some options as the current situation. People overwhelmingly preferred what already existed, simply because it already existed, not because it was better, because it was familiar. So maybe the more interesting question is not whether money can disappear, but what we are quietly betting will never change, because history has not been kind to that bet. Let me introduce you to John. John isn't real. He's a thought experiment, a vessel we can fill with our assumptions about how the world works. John is going to be our guide through the end of the world as we know it. John delivers pizza. Every morning he wakes up, he goes to work, he drives his route. The people who receive their pizzas pay for them. John forwards the money to his employer. The employer's price is set higher than the combined cost of ingredients, labor, and John's hourly wage. That margin is what keeps the whole system breathing. At the end of the month, John receives a paycheck. He uses it to buy food, to pay rent, to survive one more month, and then do it all again. This is the loop. Perhaps you recognize it. Now I'm going to introduce two disruptions, and both of them matter. The first involves a pizza, and the second involves a robot. I'll explain the pizza shortly, but the robot is going to take a bit longer to become relevant. Imagine this future. Artificial intelligence invents something like the pizza hydrator from Back to the Future. You place a tiny disc in a machine, and it expands into a full hot pizza, indistinguishable from the real thing. The cost of making pizza approaches zero. Around the same time, let's say humanoid robots become available for $300 a month. They work every hour of every day. They don't take breaks. They don't call in sick. John is fired. Time to find another job. Still have to make rent somehow. But something curious happens. The same robots that replace John are also being rented by construction companies. They work around the clock building apartment towers in every major city. Supply outpaces demand. Suddenly rent costs less than a pizza used to. John still needs food though, so he goes to the grocery store one day and realizes something unsettling. Nothing has a price tag that matters. The grocer has replaced every employee with automation. The cost of labor has dropped to nearly nothing. The grocer's rent has also collapsed. The suppliers feeding the grocer have done the same thing. Costs race towards zero across the entire supply chain. So food is essentially free. Rent is essentially free. John no longer needs a job to survive. But here is where the problem starts. It's not a problem of starvation. It's a problem of boredom. This is where people say, but surely we'll invent a new system of scarcity. Surely we'll find something to compete over. And they might be right. But let's follow the thought experiment a little further, because what happens next is where it gets strange. John is bored. He goes online, he scrolls through Instagram. Many things are now essentially free, but there are still people who have things John doesn't have. A house on the beach, a rare painting, things that are genuinely scarce, things not everyone can possess by definition. John compares himself to them based on these possessions. Even though almost everything is free, he still feels poor. This is the hedonic treadmill in action. Psychologist Philip Brickman studied lottery winners and paraplegic patients in 1978 and found something counterintuitive. Within a year, both groups returned to roughly the same level of happiness they had before their circumstances changed. Humans adapt. We recalibrate our expectations to match our new reality, and then we find new things to want. So John does something perhaps foolish. He starts a company. Against astronomical odds, he tries to deliver value that no other entity can deliver in a world of artificial general intelligence, billions of robots, and near infinite abundance. Somehow, miraculously, he succeeds. He climbs to the very top. He becomes the one who has those scarce things no one else has. He buys the house on the beach, the rare painting. He posts his achievements on Instagram. Victorious at last. 0 views, 0 likes. By the time John reaches the top of the old ladder, everyone has stopped climbing ladders altogether. Everyone has left. In a world where everyone has everything, Instagram has become boring. Showing off possessions to people who can acquire the same things instantly has lost all meaning. Turns out, everyone has moved to virtual worlds. They're spending their lives in simulations that feel as vivid and real as physical reality. Why look at pictures of someone else's beach house when you can have your own beach house, your own planet, your own universe designed to your exact specifications? So John does the only thing left to do when no one wants to play with you. He plays alone. He enters a simulation. The technology is so advanced it doesn't ask him what world to create. It simply builds what he needs most, whether he realizes it or not. John enters the simulation and something peculiar happens. He wakes up, it's 6 a.m., time to go to work and deliver pizzas.